Thank you for welcoming me onto your screens or onto your headphones, depending on how you're watching this. I'm Eddie, and this is The Rollback. Folks, I'm going to talk to you today about Leave the World Behind, aka The Happening, but better, much better. So Leave the World Behind stars Mahershala Ali, Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, Mahala, I hope I'm pronouncing that, Mathala, and Kevin Bacon. In this film, a family goes away on a quaint little trip, renting an Airbnb to spend the weekend together, family stuff, leaving the big city when shit goes awry. Mahershala Ali and his daughter, Mahala, arrive and chaos kind of ensues. This is a movie that it alludes to it being the end of the world, but we're never quite sure. This movie is, honestly, it's a mixed bag. I'll be honest with you. Just cards on the table. I hate disaster end of the world films. One, there's typically too much suffering, but two, it terrifies me because you have no control over the situation. I can control if I'm fighting a slasher in a horror film, right? I can control the tempo to some degree in a sports film, right? I have some bearing. But end of the world films are terrifying because you're not in control and there's nothing you can do about it. You're just along for the ride, so strap the fuck up. That said, this film, it does a lot of the heavy lifting early on, establishing the characters, whether you like them, whether you don't, but also trying to understand where they're coming from. Julia Roberts' character kind of being very defensive towards Mahershala Ali and his daughter because I don't know you, you're strangers, and there's no way for me to check you because my phone doesn't work. But all that gets set off real quick. So as it turns out, there may or may not have been a terrorist attack. There may or may not have been a hacking to disarm several crucial resources that people need. There may or may not have been hackings to take control of vehicles. It may or may not have been by the Middle East. It may or may not have been by North Korea or by, to quote Kevin Bacon, the Koreans, or China or any other government, maybe Russia, whatever. Essentially, the United States is under attack in this film, but here's the thing. We never see the scope of it from a grand scale. We only see it from the perspective of these few characters and what they see, which, to their credit, I think might be more terrifying. The simple fact that we don't know what's going on. We're right in there with them. We see a hydrogen bomb going off in the distance at one point. We see people evacuating, scattering. Mahershala Ali plays, he's an accountant, I believe, but he's index fund manager, or hedge fund manager, I believe. Anyway, at one point, he tells a story about one of his clients, one of his most, not necessarily famous-ish, who makes a lot of money. They joke about the Cabal, of the evil guys and people that decide the world. Well, when he tries joking about the Cabal one more time, the guy says, "Take care of yourself." Not in a awkward way, but more in a shit's gonna hit the fan, and this is about as much as I can tell you kind of way. Which is terrifying for a number of reasons. One, it sets up the idea that, of course, the elite would have an idea. And look, if you're one of those people that subscribes to those conspiracy theories, exist as you will. I mean, there is some grounds to that. The fact that during COVID, you had to wait 2 weeks for a test to come back, or 2 or 3 days for a test to come back, and then we had these rich douchebags throwing parties in where's that? The Hamptons. So fuck them. That said, to look at the end of the world through this perspective, through this very limited lens, is terrifying. It's scary in every single way, shape, and form. Granted, Mahershala Ali's character, G.H. Scott or George, I think the only problem with his character, which, for the record, Mahershala Ali plays him incredibly well. I'm not doubting on his character whatsoever. I'm just saying there's not the exposition that comes from him in particular. He just happens to work in a sector or an environment where he kind of knows what he's talking about. When it comes to microwave weapons, when it comes to end of the world doomsday stuff, shelters, bomb shelters, he happens to just be enough on the crust of the elite to know what's going on, but apparently not up there enough to be safe. We get scattered information. At one point, he talks to Ethan Hawke, and he says one of the guys that he spoke to, one of the analyst thing that he was supposed to do was to figure out, okay, what would be the most cost-effective way of destabilizing a government? One was knock out their resources. So, for example, oil, take down their internet, Another thing was to spread misinformation, disinformation, and essentially let them, destroy themselves from the inside. Another part that he mentions is using the most extreme people within the military, allowing them to take control. And I mean, you would hope that people in the military are, stable of mind, but, fucking the President of the United States sometimes isn't stable of mind. Am I speaking about Joe Biden or am I talking about Donald Trump? You'll never know. I'm talking about Trump. Fuck him. Anyway, that said, the idea or the concept of these military people allowing their personal feelings to get in the way of what's best for the citizens, it's also fucking terrifying, because I believe it. I believe that there's a guy there just batshit crazy enough to say, oh God, we're being under attack. They're attacking the major cities. Let's just nuke them right now and take as many of them with us as we can. That is fucking terrifying. Odd fact. Michelle Obama and Barack Obama actually listed as executive producers, not because they executive produced the film, but because Obama mentioned this in his reading list for, I think, 2021. This book got a lot of traction because of that. So props to him for that one. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this film. The ending leaves a lot to be desired. I think there's also a lot of commentary on some people would rather be ignorant of the situation rather than actually confronting the reality of what's going on and what's happening. On another side of the coin, though, we get the daughter who happens to be obsessed with Friends, who the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts, who's obsessed with Friends, who ends the film watching the last episode because she needs to know how it ends. I'd argue that's a commentary on our need for nostalgia, even when the world's coming to an end, but the fuck if I know, man. Maybe I'm wrong in that sense. I do want to mention Julia Roberts and Mahila. Her name in the film is Ruth. She plays Mahershala Ali, George's daughter. She's in her mid-20s. Her and Julia Roberts' character, Miss Amanda Stanford, Sanford, like a Sanford wife. That makes sense. But her and Amanda butt heads a lot. But the one time that they really do begin to bond is when Ruth is almost killed by a bunch of deer. They're about to jump her, seemingly like they're going to rush her, when Amanda steps in and starts running, yelling, and jumping at the deer, and Ruth does that too to scare the deer away. And they kind of trauma bond there. The fear of death is enough to set aside all personal boundaries, because Ruth on one side is very rude, I would say. Not to say Amanda is. Amanda is very much a Karen. But on the other side of the coin, we also have Ruth, who is very much, how do I say this? She insults Amanda by saying, well, I'm still trying to figure myself out. Last thing I want to do is get stuck in a dead-end job and hate myself and, be locked in. Kind of, like not being a very nice person. Then again, I understand why she's kind of mad, because her and her dad sleep in the basement of the home that they own because politeness. There's more to be let on there. But yeah, Ruth and Amanda trauma bond over that, and then they see the nukes in the distance, or I'm sorry, hydrogen bombs, because that makes a difference, dropping in the distance in New York City. Batshit nuts film, man, and I can't decide if I like it or if I hate it, because I hate it in the world films, but I like the way that they accomplished this one, and there's something to be said at the fact they managed to keep the scope so small. I don't know, maybe B? Yeah, I'm going to say B. I'm not going to watch this movie again. I won't, but not bad. Definitely worth a watch. Go check it out on Netflix if you can. And yeah, what other movies do y'all recommend? We need some recommendations here. It's December, but unfortunately not a lot of films are being released at the moment. So, yeah, recommendations would be appreciated. That said, we'll catch y'all later. We'll see everybody.